What up, guys? Dr. Vic here. You're listening to another episode here on the Mindful Experiment. As each week, I'm sharing something with you to inspire, to level up in your life in some way, shape, or form. This episode, I'm really excited to share with you. It's all about the programming of the mind and how you know you've been programmed, how you know you've been influenced. And I think this is the beginning of your journey to breaking free of the prison that we have put ourselves in when it comes to our mindset and mind and allowing us to achieve the levels that we can ever unbelievably achieve and so much more. And I was reading some books, listening to some books as I was doing some work. And it was one of the things where this started to come up, and I was like, I've talked about this before. I talked about this in my book, Cultural Programming. I call it the human collective consciousness is more what I've learned it from. And I was like, man, there's programming on so many different levels, from the town you grew up in, to the culture, the family, the dynamics that you have, to the friends you have around you, to the profession that you're in. There's these vibrational frequencies that create the program, and then that creates the attraction to see what your experience will be in there. And there was something that struck out with me, and I was like, I noticed that in my own healing journey, anytime I use the word should, or I should be this way, or I should do this, I should be doing this right now, I started to realize that that's not really me talking. That's not me at all. That's not who I am. That's not me. How I talk, how I put pressure on myself, or make myself strive to another level. I was kind of like, hold on. So I started to do a journey years ago, and every time I would say I should be doing this, I sometimes would write it down. Not like I always did, but when I was being more mindful, I would write it down and then find out who told me I needed to be that way. This is an awesome exercise I highly recommend you doing, because you're going to start to see the programming that you don't realize that you've been programmed. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've been programmed. Every human being in this world has been programmed and conditioned to be a certain way. It's called being in a family. That's where it all begins. And then from family, you have friends, you have the culture, the society, the people around you. Then you have the school systems that you go through and all those type of things. There's programming upon programming upon programming, and it's existing a certain way. Just like in my last episode I did, I talked about even like when you're choosing to be a Republican or a Democrat or a certain religion, there's programming and levels in that. There's programming in all things. There's a vibrational frequency what makes them exist. And then there's conditions that fall into that programming, which you can call a game, right? You can call it rules. Those are similar. And what was fascinating is I started to look back in my life every time I say the word should, and I know exactly who would say it. I know exactly who was telling me. I knew exactly to that process. And it was fascinating because it was actually more freedom. It was like, you know what? Hold on here. Do I agree with this? Right? So, like, for example, sitting around doing nothing and just watch TV and just lay around, I may do that for 6 hours twice a year, if that. It doesn't happen often. My wife says I should do more of it. I agree with her. I need to slow it down a little bit. But it's one of those things where the reason why I don't do it often is because in my head, I'm like, I should be doing something. I need to be doing something. Right. And one day I said, let me go see where that came from. So I went into meditation, got myself really centered, and I started looking at my life. It's kind of like a film playing right across my eyes. And I'm like, you know what? I remember, here it is how vivid it is. I remember in the basement of my house growing up, I was about 7, 8 years old, and I was sitting there on the couch Saturday morning watching my cartoons. I loved watching my cartoons in the morning. I used to bowl at like 11ish or something like that. And so there was two things I did in the morning. One, my mom will let me watch my cartoons and eat and relax. Then I had to clean. We had to clean. I had a certain area in the basement of the TV room area where I was cleaning. I would use my lemon pledge, wipe that down, vacuum the carpet, wipe down the dust, wipe the TV, clean up the couch, fold the blanket, fluff the pillows. I mean, guys, this is visually in my head. And so then all of a sudden, one time, my dad, I don't know if he was getting up in the morning, he was coming home from work. I think he was coming home from a job he was up earlier in the morning for. And he's like, "What are you doing? Why are you just sitting around? We got things to do." And that struck, right? And so all of a sudden, then he would reinforce that, right? Every time he would see me laying around or just sitting there relaxing, hey, what are you doing? And so what happened was is that programming conditioned me to say sitting around doing nothing is not good. So as I got older, I used to say I can't be sitting around. I should be doing something. I should be. So here is the key thing that I want you to focus on in this podcast. Pay attention to how many times you say I should be doing something. The word should is the clue that you're programmed and conditioned, that you're listening to someone else or something or someone who told you that this is how it should be. A cultural influence, a cultural aspect, whatever that is, they're telling you how you should be or how you should act and controlling the behavior. Right. And instead, that is not you. That is the control mechanisms, the programming in the mind. So anytime you say the word, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or I should be this way, or I should be that way. No. Because one of the things also I learned is that as a people pleaser, that's how I was raised. All my feelings had to be put to the side, no matter if it was good or bad. And I had to just please the person that was in front of me. And I learned over time, like if I did something and I offended someone, oh my God, I felt so bad. I used to be that way. Until I got a point in my life where I was like, hold up, but this is where I'm at. This is how I feel. Yes, I get that I want to make things work, but maybe I have to look at it from a different perspective of just saying, I'm going to let my feelings down and I'm going to go ahead and make sure this gets better. Even when things got better, I still felt like crap because I didn't get myself addressed. I didn't share my voice. Right. And I know from energy medicine, I would wonder why was my heart chakra so blocked? Why was my throat chakra so blocked? Interesting. Emotions, speaking, right? Throat and heart work together because the throat is what speaks your heart. Okay. You need the throat chakra to speak your heart. Well, technically your throat. But long story short, when I wasn't doing that, I was blocking this and I was blocking my heart, which are my lungs were actually being affected. Now there's some studies in healing modalities, especially in energy medicine, they'll say if you have a blocked chakra there, most of the time you're going to have issues with that area until you open it up and get it to flow the energy better. And then the frequency and vibration goes up, which means your health will go better from that. And so I just learned to speak my truth more. I learned to share my heart. No matter what was going on in my life, no matter what was happening, I would always share my heart. And I've learned to get better over time. But I didn't should myself, because don't should all over yourself. It's not worth it. Be aware of that. So if you get anything out of this episode, I'm keeping this one short, but if you get anything out of this episode, be mindful when you say I should be doing something. And then ask, who's telling me to do that? Who taught me that, or who's telling me to do that? Or I should be like, when I say who's telling me to do that, the question is, who is the person or thing or profession or group, whatever, that's saying this is how you're supposed to be doing things, not what you want to do. Okay. Because when you start to say shoulds and this and that, you become part of a group, and you, as the individuality of the individual person who you are, becomes muted. And now all of a sudden you're not expressing who you are. So be careful of that, because most of the time that's cultural influence, that's programming, society, family, friends, whatever it may be that you've taken on, whether you may have known that you did, or you may have known not that you did. And now the key thing is you have the power to break off of that. You have the power to do that. There's no questions asked. It's just, how much are you going to continue that to stay alive? Or you're going to get tired of it and say, no more, I'm going to create my own. Because then you get to the point of, when you ask those questions, the next one is how would I like it to be? No one else's influence. How would I like it to be? And then that is the beginning of your journey to freedom, which has freed me like crazy. And don't be expected. You may get some people who may be a little upset or may get mad at you or say things to you. Trust me, I get it all the time, because I needed to find my freedom and how I wanted to live my life. It wasn't an easy journey. Yes, there's a lot of relationships that got broken because of it. And, I was learning through the time too. And so it wasn't all of them. It's me at the end of the day. But I was learning through that process to find my freedom. And now I'm there, and it's awesome. I can't tell you how less stressed I am. I don't worry about things anymore. And if I mess up, hey, I own it, apologize, let's regroup, let's recenter. And if the relationship was really true, always remember this: if a relationship, friend, family, whatever it may be, if the relationships were true, they can handle any hardship. So the harder the stress on a relationship, and the more it continues to stay together and thrive, the stronger that deep roots of that relationship is. When you have something little come up and the relationship just dies off, it was never really rooted well. And so there was something, and it may be one side versus the other. Sometimes it's one who's like, I'm very rooted and grounded. The other one doesn't want to blend in and root ground with it. Whatever those combination is, I don't get into that. The key thing is understanding to find your freedom along the way. Pay attention to that word. How many times you say, I should be doing this or should be doing that. And then we can take it from there. And that opens up that path to freedom. So I hope you found this inspiring. I hope this helps. That's what I got for you guys today. Appreciate you being on. If you find this to be inspirational, share it with someone that you know. And as always, thank you guys. Many blessings. I'll see you on the next one.